When we make you laugh, aren't we fucking funny?
Does that sound right?
What's the boogeyman?
Welcome back to the Moonjuice Metal Horror Podcast, the podcast where we live and breathe heavy metal and horror, but are afraid to shit on both of them. I'm Mike.
I'm Matt. Holy shit! It's that time. I know we didn't put out what movie we were gonna do on the last episode, so this is a complete surprise for everybody. So before announcing this movie, I will try my best. This is a promise that I don't know if I can make good on, but I will try my best not to nerd out during this entire thing and go on a tangent. Everybody's kind of got like their top, right? And if you're a horror fan, you've got your 3 to 4 to 5 movies that you think are like the best horror movie, period, right? So we talked about The Thing. I don't know if that's in Mike's top 5, but that's like one of my movies that I think is damn near perfect. Alien being the second. And it's kind of a toss-up between those two movies, if The Thing or Alien are the best horror movie. And I think if you're going to do that, you kind of have to have like some kind of criteria, right? So for me, criteria of what makes a movie perfect, near perfect, or a really, really good horror film is, one, what you think about it, the thought that went behind it, how original it is, and then what type of impact that had on society too, right? So if you look at The Thing and you look at Alien, the impact of those movies on society and what people remember, nostalgia, how much money the movie made, how long lasting the impact of that movie is, you can easily say that The Thing and Alien are timeless, right? And they're damn near perfect horror films, in my opinion. This one for me is no different, although be it probably even more of a cultural impact, not just on horror, but on anyone who saw it, including the church. The cultural impact of this movie is so wide reaching that you would be hard pressed to go to any country in the world and find someone who didn't know about this movie or hadn't seen it, right? There are also, because I have to mention this because I was born and raised in Mobile, Alabama, which is a extremely religious society. So it's mostly Catholic, Baptist, and Methodist, right?
Yeah.
And this movie was completely fucking blackballed down south. Like, the church was showing up protesting this movie. It took up whole pages of newspapers at them saying, don't go see this movie. The devil is in the celluloid kind of thing. There was a full fear campaign for this movie.
But the funny thing is, it was exactly that led the movie to success, because it had the effect that sometimes a lot of people watched it just to see if it was that extreme and that bad. And I agree with you on the majority of points. I agree on this movie for the cultural impact it has. This is definitely a horror movie that had one of the most highest impacts on culture, specifically when it came out. But this is something we are strongly going to disagree on. Either than that, there's nothing objectively bad I can say about this movie. Just that I never liked it.
That's okay.
That's okay. This is the fourth time I've seen it, and for me, The Exorcist always has been one of the most boring horror movies that have ever been made. I think this movie is insanely fucking boring. And even though this is like one of the only movies that I've seen 4 times, and I still can't name any actual characters from the game. Really, I mean, even when we were talking about it and I was making the thumbnail, you suggested me a few things, and it made no fucking sense to me because I had no idea what the characters' names were anymore. That was like literally right after I watched it.
Yeah. Yeah. If you say something to Mike that doesn't make any sense to him, he starts to lose his shit. Just understand that out there. Like, he sent me a picture of the thumbnail, and it was like Linda Blair's character in the front, and her head's taking up most of it, and then he's got Father Merrin on the right and left. And I was like, yeah, dude, that's fucking great. That's a good looking thumbnail, but you probably need the mom and you need Pazuzu in there, right? Like, Pazuzu has to be in there somewhere. And the first thing I got back was, who the fuck is Pazuzu? And he didn't realize that Regan was the actual character that was possessed. I think you were thinking Regan was like one of the priests, right? Or the
Yeah,
mom or
that's what
something.
I thought. That's what I thought. I just called him the priest. For me, it was always priest number 1, priest number 2, and
Yeah.
possessed girl.
Yeah, I get it. So
That's why.
it's,
And
I guess,
Reagan
I
started
guess
to me.
it's,
I wasn't sure, but I did not lose my shit. I wasn't that bad this time.
no, you didn't lose your shit. You didn't lose your shit. But I could tell you were very perplexed. That's why I wrote back like, okay, so this person is this, and this person is this. That way you knew who I was talking about. And then when I explained it, you were like, oh, okay, yeah, that makes perfect sense. It's okay. Like, so
Yeah,
you and
thank
I
you.
both have ADHD, right? I'm also not good with names at all. Like I
Yeah,
have to see a movie multiple times before I catch names and remember names of people.
I can remember the most detailed shit, but names is for me just like gone. And I at least knew 1 or 2 of the of characters from movies after seeing them multiple times, but this one still no name stuck with me. And this is funny. Because you said what Pazuzu or whatever his name was. There's one thing I have about when I hear that name when I first heard it, because I never I it was a demon or a devil. That's okay, yeah. Demon devil possessed some girl. I never really thought of the name because I never really cared. But when you wrote it to me, I literally brought it up because this is what I thought of when you gave me that name.
Get the fuck out of here, dude. No, that is not Pazuzu. No, that is not Pazuzu. Holy shit. Yeah, I can see why you were extremely confused then. Okay. Yeah, no. I mean, so I'll go ahead and apologize ahead of time. I'm a huge fucking nerd for this movie, and that's why I know every character's
Yeah.
name. Like this movie enthralled the shit out of me, Mike, because I was told you cannot watch this movie. This is not a movie that you will ever see when you were in my house, right? And that's what I was
Yeah,
told by my
probably.
parents, right? So what's the first thing I did was go to a friend's
You
house and
watched
say,
this
"Hey, dude,
movie.
hey, we have to rent The Exorcist." Yeah, of course. I watched it when I was like 10, because my parents told me not to. So it must be something really cool, right?
Yeah.
And so I watched it, and keep in mind at 10 years old, I think the only thing that I had seen that was even close to this scary may have been Silver Bullet, right?
Yeah.
Which for a 10-year-old is a pretty scary movie, right? This movie scared the piss out of me. And if you come from a religious family, Mike, and if you're someone who's brought up in the church and you're told, if you sin, you're going to hell, all these horrible things that come along with Christianity.
Yeah.
And you see this movie, it almost feels like a fucking horrible sin to watch it. And so in that context, this
Yeah.
movie was terrifying for me. Absolutely fucking terrifying.
Yeah.
And I will give it to you that it could be, without that context, this movie can seem a little bit boring. And I get that. And I tend to agree with you. It is a slow burn horror
Yeah.
film.
Yeah, slow burn. Like, slow burn is not necessarily bad. One thing that always,
Oh,
for me at least, that made it boring to me was this movie always felt to me like an adaptation of the Bible. By watching it, it's for me. It's too religious. Not necessarily that that's a bad thing, but it
oh,
bores me to death. I mean, it's just the entire vibe, the characters, the way it's written, the way the story is brought up. It's all typical mundane Catholic religious stuff.
yeah,
And all of the characters are typical mundane Catholic whatever people.
yeah,
And that's just the thing. I'm just bored. It bores me. Even though I usually like mythologies, but it's also how it's portrayed. It's just like this is just for me, this is like, this movie for me is like reading the Bible. And it took me like a year to read the Bible because that book is so fucking boring. No?
yeah, it is. It is.
And the entire vibe is just like super extreme Catholic. And I just instantly lose all interest.
Yeah, I get it.
That
I get it.
I think is just my major issue with it. I wasn't raised in a religious family like you. I mean, I was raised by an atheist family. I mean, just like my older. I told you, my mom got a little bit of. She was like a little bit upset a few years back. This is like 10 or 15 years back because my older sister joined the church.
Okay.
And my mom
Catholic
was,
church or just
I
church in general?
I think Catholic.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure it's Catholic. I'm not entirely sure, but I mean, another thing, Catholic evangelisch is completely fucking stupid to me, literally. Just like this is modern religion was always insanely fucking moronic in my opinion because Jewish, Christian, Islam, whatever all the other things are. I mean,
Pick
I
your
mean,
poison, right?
yeah, I wouldn't say necessarily that I really have an issue with any of these religions or people believing in it. I think that's totally fine. Everybody should have any religion they want to, as long as they're not hurting
Yeah.
people. But the thing is, what's ridiculous is all of these religions are worshiping the same fucking god. Well, at the end of the day, in my opinion at least, I find it very hard to see any difference in these belief systems. I mean, they're not the
Okay.
same, obviously.
Yeah.
But to me, even growing up, I found it insanely difficult to see much of a difference. I mean, because
Mhm.
if you go into like older pagan religions, a lot of it made sense. You had like Ra and Osiris. The Egyptians, the Vikings had Odin and Thor. The Greek had Zeus. The Romans had Jupiter, whatever. And then other people had their, I don't know, other spiritual mumbo jumbo stuff. Cool with that too. But whenever modern religions came along, people have been killing each other over this stuff. Even though
Yeah.
all of these people are worshiping the same fucking god.
Well,
That-
I think
yeah.
that conversation is very it's important to why this movie has become what it
Yes,
is,
yes,
right?
yes,
So
yes.
to basically sum it up, right? So, and this is just my belief. This is not, like this is my truth, right? So religion is what it is. Human beings are hardwired to believe in something. We are.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
been proven in neuroscience. We're hardwired to believe in something. So, depending on where you grew up, what your demographic is, what your country is, you're going to subscribe to that religion at a young age, and that's how religion works. You get them while they're young. Even Jesus said it. He's like, "Come to me as children with an open mind." That's how you can accept this stuff, and that's what religion is. It ingrains itself in who you are as a person at a very young age. And you either continue to subscribe to it,
Yeah.
which is normal if you stay in the place that you grew up, right? So if I was in Iraq and I grew up in Iraq, then I would probably still be an Islamist. If I grew up in Mobile, Alabama, and was a Methodist Christian and stayed there in a society where everybody believed that stuff and it was difficult to be an atheist in that society, then I would probably still be a Christian. But because I got out and looked at every other religion in the world and went to all these other different places, I kind of saw how the world really worked. And so you tend to break that cast pretty quick with education, right? And that's what it comes down to. It's not to say religious people are stupid, because they're not. Some of the most brilliant people in the world are religious and they believe in some God. But it is a worldview that is pushed on you at a young age, and you either decide that it absolutely makes no sense and it is there to control you, which is what religion is. And I don't care if I get hate for that. That's exactly what it is. Religion is there to control you and make you do things for someone else.
Yes.
That's
Absolutely.
why we have religious
Absolutely.
wars.
Yeah.
Right. That's why we have religious wars. That's why we have martyrs. That's why we have most of the problems that we have in modern day society. And if you can figure out as a person who wants to control things how to use religion to get people to do those things, then you can become a conqueror. And it has not ceased. That continues now. And because of that, because religion is such an ingrained thing from a really young age, and Mike, you're the minority. You
I know that.
grew up over here. Yeah, you grew up over here in Europe with atheist parents, and you were taught to treat people nicely, regardless of what some book told you to do with people or how to treat them. Your worldview is strictly just kindness, right?
Yes,
And
exactly.
that's great. But a lot of people don't have that. And I think the majority of America at the time that this movie came out were religious, right? So this is 1972. And so in 1972, the church, specifically the Catholic Church, had quite a grip on society. They basically dictated what was evil, what was not evil, to the point that it was on, the front page of newspapers. Like the church was telling you what to do.
Yeah.
And that's why this movie is so fucking brilliant, because it was able to take that zeitgeist of religion at that time and scare the shit out of people with it. There's a big argument for this film, and I'm not sure how true it is. There's echoes of it. The director was asked about it. Other people were asked about it. The Catholic Church had something to do with this movie. They partially funded it, which is interesting, right? Because the
Okay.
first people to speak up about this movie and say it's evil was the church. So this movie was not made to be a horror film. It is a horror film, but the idea was they wanted to make a film that the core study of this film was a lack of faith and what a lack of faith can lead to, right? And it ended up being a horror film because you can shock and awe people that believe in something with terrible images. And that's exactly what they did. And I'm not sure how much the Catholic Church funded this film, but there was a large chunk of money that came from the
Yeah.
Catholic Church specifically to fund this film and make it a fear campaign, which is brilliant. Brilliant. And then they had their own people go and rally against it. What this movie does to you, if you are someone who is religiously inclined, I mean, I grew up Methodist, so we weren't fire and brimstone like the Catholics were. The Catholics, have you ever been to a Catholic church service or anything like that? Did you ever accidentally go to church?
Well, yeah. I think I was in church, I think with the school back in like the 5th or 6th grade. There were a few times, like once or twice a year, where somehow we did that. Yeah, we went to church and there was like, all the whole class was sitting in church, and some dumbass, I mean, it was probably the priest, was chanting some shit I did not really care about. I think actually I even fell
Sounds
asleep.
about right. Yeah. Okay. Depending on your denomination, and by denomination, I mean what sect of the church you're in, it's either always a fear campaign or it's just, hey, here's what the book says. Here's how we're supposed to treat each other, whatever. Methodists are more like that. Methodists is more like, hey, we don't need to talk about all the evil things or the bad things or, what's going to happen to you if you're not a good person, but we should all treat each other nicely. The Catholics, on the other hand, are everything that you do is evil. Everything that's human is evil. And if you do these things, you're going to hell and you're going to burn forever. And that's the way the Catholic Church is, right?
Like you say, with the Catholic Church, and this is crazy thing. I just always found it very, very, interesting that the most religious people are the ones that have usually never read the Bible, because I mean,
Surprise!
a surprise, because I mean the Bible is very specific about what you have to do to go to hell. And the only thing that the Bible actually says that you go to hell for is if you're not willing to open your heart to God. So that is like literally, that is literally in the Bible the only thing that will make you go to hell. Any other sin or crime you commit, you are thrown into, I think, purgatory. I think is the English term. Fegefeuer is the German term, at least what ever I think you're sure.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
specifically a Catholic thing.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Split the Catholic religion is you're thrown into purgatory, and in the fires of purgatory, you are cleansed from all of your sins, and then Jesus comes up by and picks you up and takes you to heaven. That is literally in the Bible. So it's just like that was also absolutely crazy to me when I hear like like Catholic or people talking like you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this. And it's like, yeah, well, I mean, Bible says something different. And this is also something very, very funny. Now, because of course, Bible is more just supposed to be like guidelines instead of rules. But what I always found
Yeah.
insanely fucking funny is that apparently the Bible was written by God. somehow or whatever, or by Jesus, or I don't know, whoever. I don't care. But
No, it was supposedly written through God, through the disciples.
exactly. So
Yeah, by God talking
more,
to them.
more or less, the Bible is from God. Now, this is the most funny thing that's probably going to get me a lot of hate.
I don't know, Mike. I
Read the
think
Bible.
the people watching this
And
show are probably not religious.
they're probably not super religious, but the absolute funny thing about it is if you actually read the Bible and think about all the atrocities the Catholic Church has done up until today, considering looking into the Bible, what the Bible says is to be a good person or to be a bad person, except a lot of the anti-LGBT shit that's in the Bible. That's an entirely different discussion. But if you look at all of that, you should think about one sentence from the Bible. My opinion, everything that every Christian person should think about the subject. Be aware of false prophets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 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 yeah. That's a good one. That's a
Yep.
good one. There's also a few more that they forget about that drive me crazy, but this is going to turn into a religious bashing episode. The other one is treat everyone how you would want to be treated.
Exactly.
Right? That's from the words of Jesus Christ, and that's one of the biggest things forgotten by most Christians. Right?
However, but still, we're almost a half an hour into it, and we haven't even said what movie we're doing.
Yeah, we did. You gave it away.
I did. Did I say The Exorcist?
Yeah.
All right. I said The Exorcist. All right. Fuck, shit. I totally forgot that.
You already gave it away. It's okay. It's okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
It's all right. That tends to happen with two hosts that have ADHD.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we are doing The Exorcist. There is a lot of background about this, and like I said, I promise that I will do my best not to nerd out and get lost in the weeds. But this movie was a fear campaign, although I don't believe that the writer director really knew that at the beginning. But once the Catholic Church realized what they were doing, they funded it, right? I don't know how much was funded by the Catholic Church. It would be nice to know that, but you can't find it anywhere. But there was a certain group of Catholics who definitely poured money into this movie. And it worked. It worked because if there are horror movies, and you hear this shit today, Mike, like how many times did you hear Terrifier 2 and 3, people were running out of the theater, throwing up, screaming, that kind of shit. Most of that stuff nowadays is just a campaign to get people to go see the movies, right? It's not true. Most of the time, that is not true. Like, there may be people that get up and walk out because they saw something that they don't agree with, right? But you rarely have people throwing up, freaking out, and leaving a movie because it's that bad or that scary, right?
Yeah, most likely, yeah.
This one actually did that. So there's actual video of it. There are people who went to go see this who were religious that did not make it through the movie. Some of them went to go see the movie 3 and 4 times, hoping that they could make it through the movie, and they couldn't. They would leave crying. They would go straight to the church. There are reports of the church saying, "We've never had better attendance since this movie came out." People flocked back to the church after watching this because there are some very profound things that a non-religious person would miss watching this movie. Because if you didn't grow up with that fear, you don't get that. This is strictly a religious fear movie. So if you go into this movie as a devout Christian and you watch this, there are parts of this where you're like, fuck, I shouldn't be here. Fuck, I shouldn't be watching this. What am I doing? And you leave. And so people were doing that in droves. This movie made so much buzz in America and then also in Italy.
Yeah,
Italy was the same thing.
They're
Extremely Catholic. Yes. And so this was shown all around the world. It caught fire immediately when it went out, and people were freaked out by it. And there's good reasons for that. The story, what's funny and I like about it and I think is ingenious. Why are you laughing?
No, just because you know how bad it is. Even though this is like okay. I'll just say. I mean, Pazuzu, whatever his name is like literally the most incompetent demon I have literally ever seen in any form of entertainment. I mean, because what I think is insanely funny is to actually horrify people, but the only thing he actually does is throw a few chairs through the room and tells everybody basically to go fuck themselves.
Yeah. 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 Well, he also kills people. That's the other thing. Yeah, so
Yep.
yeah, he kills Burke, which is the friend of hers, the drunk guy, the friend of the mom. He's the drunk guy who picks a fight with her butler. You remember this?
No.
Okay, so there's a movie director in the film because the mom is an actress, right? Yeah, these are things you got to watch for, Mike. Yeah. So the thing that gets Reagan's situation attention is the fact that there's a guy murdered right outside of the house. He's thrown down a flight of stairs, right? That guy happens to be the director of the movie that her mom is acting in. And he comes by the house to watch Reagan because Reagan is already in her phase where she's in the bed and they don't know what's going on. Mom has to go to work. So Burke comes by and you don't see any of this happen, but Burke is at the house. And then the next morning they find him at the bottom of these stairs with his head twisted completely around his body and dead. Right.
Yeah.
And so the police originally think that the guy was drunk and he just fell down the stairs. But there's a detective who's like, no, I looked at the body. The head was twisted completely around backwards. And to do that, you have to have bear strength. There's no way that happened by him just falling down the stairs. And by the way, the impact marks on the body match someone who fell out of that window right there. And the window is the window to Reagan's room.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's kind of the idea we get. But then later, as Reagan's possessed, she uses that guy's voice and says to the mom, "Do you know what your daughter did? Your cunting daughter," which is also, there's some metal history here too, I want to point out. But yes, Reagan did kill Burke, right? And she eventually ends up killing both priests at the end as well. So the demon is dangerous. But other than that, yes, very incompetent and just tells people to go fuck themselves and insults people the entire film. To metal history, there is not another movie that has spawned, besides maybe Evil Dead, that has spawned more songs, metal songs in general, and not just metal songs, but popular metal songs. So the entire album from Pantera, Vulgar Display of Power, the name of that album came directly from this movie. There's a point in this movie where she opens a drawer because the priest is in there, and she opens a drawer with her mind, and he's like, "Was that you?" And the demon's laughing, so he closes the drawer, and he's like, "Do it again. Do it again. If that was you, do it again." And she's like, "No, that would be too much of a vulgar display of power." And that's where the name of Vulgar Display of Power came from, was this movie.
Okay.
The other thing is when the demon is taunting the mom and says, "Do you know what she did, your cunting daughter?" That is a line that is used in Slayer's South of Heaven. And it's probably one of Slayer's most famous songs, but that's how the song starts out, as he says that line. So this movie ingrained itself in metal history as well for more than a few reasons. And there's a lot of other bands that did songs specifically that had to do with The Exorcist, because this movie on a religious context is very, very, very evil. Right. And so for that reason, it garnered a lot of attention from the metal community as well. Yeah. Yeah. We could go ahead and get into the movie and the cast, because we probably need to do that at 38 minutes. We're already at.
Yeah.
So you can do that, get into the cast and crew and the writer director, and then I will go through some fun facts, and then we'll start the movie.
Yeah, okay. Well, however, before I get into it, the cast of the movie, if you like our podcast, don't forget to follow us on Spotify. And if you're watching this on YouTube, please subscribe to our channel, leave us a comment, a like, and hit the bell button to stay updated on all episodes. Okay, well, we're getting into the cast. Okay, we have Linda Blair playing Regan McNeil, Ellen Burstyn playing Chris McNeil, Jason Miller playing Damien Karras, and he's playing two characters. Larkester Marin is what it says here. We have Max from Sido, playing Lancaster Marin. Oh, this is one good name. Vasiliki Melarios, now Kara's mother. We have Jack McGowan. No, Jack. Or I'm gonna just call him Jack McCow.
This is my favorite part of the podcast when you read the names of the people in the movie, Mike. I love this. Like, I look forward to this every time because it's so great.
Yeah. Okay.
Thanks for the laugh.
Jack McCowan, I'm gonna call him. We have Kitty Wynn that played Sharon Spencer. Oh, and I totally forgot. Jack McCowan plays Burke Dennings.
Yeah.
We have Lee J. Kopp plays Lieutenant William Kinderman. And Mercedes McCambridge, who plays Pazuzu. Funny that a person named Mercedes is playing a demon from hell, but fine.
It's interesting, right?
The movie was directed was by William Friedkin, and the story was written by William Peter Blatty. Yes, exactly. And of course, there were sequels and a lot of prequels, a lot of spin-offs. I don't know. It feels like there have been like 1,000 movies called The Exorcist, and I haven't seen any of them.
There has, yeah. To be honest, Exorcist 2 is laughably bad. Everything that comes after that that's tied to The Exorcist is laughably bad. The only one, and it's a strange phenomenon, but there are 2 prequels, and they're both the exact same movie, Mike. So, it's the same film, told differently by 2 different directors. And I'm not really sure why that happened, and I haven't looked into it. But one of them's called Dominion, and the other one is called The Beginning. And they're both the official prequel to this movie, which makes absolutely no sense. But arguably, both of them are very good movies. Exact same actors, exact same cast, different things happen in both movies, and it's really odd. I don't know why that happened, and I need to look into it. But Dominion is worth watching. Dominion was probably the only good one besides The Exorcist that actually works with this film. But as is the case with most prequels, it tries to do too much, and it tells too much of the story, and then it kind of makes this movie uninteresting because you already know why these things are happening, right? So
yeah, I know. For me, generally, The Exorcist, it has like always had an effect on me that I'm going to call the Game of Thrones effect. Just like the first thing I saw about the franchise was so fucking boring to me that I had no interest in watching anything that came afterwards, and I never have.
Okay. It's fair. So this is one of those movies that I can see why it's boring to people who have no religious context or background. Because if you know a little bit about the Bible, you can kind of understand what's going on. But if you have the religious upbringing and the context of that, then this movie's terrifying. And so it's lost on people who, weren't really raised that way. And I get that. I understand that. So technically this movie was not for atheists, because atheists are going to watch it and laugh. And even now I look at it and I think, man, this is silly. It is.
That's true.
It's silly.
Atheists watch this movie and laugh at it because it's like you're sitting there as an atheist like, why is this demon terrifying? He's literally the entire time just basically telling people to go fuck themselves.
That's what it comes down to, and that's what the demon does. The purpose of the demon being there is not really ever explained either. There's kind of a part where Father Marin is like, yeah, it chose Regan because she's innocent and sweet, and demons kind of get off on something innocent being destroyed. And that's why the demon is doing what it's doing. It's not trying to make its way into our world. It's not trying to destroy humanity or anything. It is strictly doing this to be a troll. That's why the demon is doing what it's doing. It is there strictly just to upset people. Right. It just wants to upset people. That's it. It has no other ulterior motive other than laughing in people's face and getting them upset. That's what the demon does. There's like world taking over. There's no like master plan. It is strictly there to be a troll. Basically, this demon is someone on the internet who cusses you out, calls you names, and doesn't respond to any posts intelligently. That's what this demon.
Exactly. Yeah.
Pazuzu is the ultimate troll, but I love it. I'm there for it. Like, I think the best parts of the movie, if you're not a religious person and it really doesn't have an effect on you, the best parts of the movie are the insults that come out of Regan's mouth because they are horrendous. And to hear a girl who's 12 years old say these things is like a little bit shocking because the things that she does and the things that she says they're up there, dude. They're up there with being borderline obscene, right? So, interesting fun facts about the movie. To get the voice of the demon, they hired Mercedes Cambridge, like you already said. She's an older woman. She is a really heavy smoker, and she realized that her voice was already really cantankerous and mean and like grumbly, but she demanded that they gave her a bottle of whiskey per day to drink and raw eggs because she wanted her voice to just be destroyed when she did the voice of this demon. And it comes out. Like, did you watch the English version or the German version?
I watched the English version.
Yeah. Okay. So I'd never seen the German version. I actually watched it in German just to see how the dubbing was. And the voice of the demon is nowhere near as terrifying as the American English version.
For me,
right?
one of the main things when I saw as a teenager was I watched it in German, and that instantly. I mean, how should I say? Every movie is always worse when you watch it in German, in my opinion, unless it is a German movie. That's something else. But
yeah. The dubbing has come a long way since the time that this one was dubbed in German, and I think the version that I watched in German is probably the newer dubbing because the older dubbing is horrendous from what I've read.
I don't know. It's just when it becomes even nowadays, I don't like German dubbing because they always fuck up the voices. If you have like a mean, terrifying, and like mean sounding voice, it's always gonna sound like a Timu version of the original. Like just like for example, and it's like always bothered me that they never try in German when they dub people. They never try to find somebody that has like a similar sounding voice. Neither that would also bugs me. Neither do German voice actors ever even try to sound like the original.
Yeah.
That bugs the shit out of me. Yeah.
It's hit and miss. It's hit and miss for sure. There's a few movies I've seen dubbed in German where I was like, they actually really tried with this. But then I usually find out after the movie that the actual original actor speaks German, so they dubbed their own voice, right? And yeah, and that's when it works. But otherwise, I've gotten so used to it now. We watch everything in German unless I have to watch it for the podcast because I want the original English text.
Yeah.
So yeah, I digress. So the woman who voiced the demon basically method acted as a hungover dragon the whole time. Linda Blair, who is the actress who plays Regan, thought the script was a comedy. So she was a young girl and they gave her just pieces of the script.
Yeah.
And there's a part where she read something the demon said and it started with your mother. And you know which part I'm talking about, right? She just read that part and laughed really hard out loud. She's like, wow, this demon is insulting people. He's doing your mother jokes. And the director had to stop her and be like, no, the demon is saying your mother sucks cocks in hell. It's not really funny. She thought it was a comedy when she started the role. You may have noticed that the room at a certain point that Regan is in, like the bedroom, you can see everyone's breath, right?
Yeah.
So they wanted the room to be extremely cold. So what they did was they actually took a freezer, an industrial freezer, and built the room inside of a freezer. And the actors complained about this all the time because there were hours and hours and hours inside of this industrial freezer for the scenes of the exorcism. And a few people even got hypothermia, but the director was like, shut the fuck up and just do your lines. So there were some hospital bills that had to be paid here. Everybody was walking around in a sweater and a full jacket until the scene started filming. There's a scene in here with projectile vomit. There's actually a few scenes where she pukes up like green pea soup on everybody, right?
Yeah.
But there's one particular scene where the hose malfunctioned that was on the side of her face and hit the wrong person. So there's a scene where Father Merrin is standing over her, giving her like rites during the exorcism, and it hits him right here in the face and the
Yeah, I know that
glasses.
scene. Yeah.
That was a mistake. That wasn't supposed to happen. It was supposed to hit him in the chest, and he was supposed to try to wipe it off, but it hit him right in the face. So the disgust from him that you see in this scene is actually real. He did not expect to get hit in the face with this shit. So he had to take off his glasses and wipe his face and still stay in character, which is fucking hilarious. There's a scene at the end, and if you go back, Mike, and watch this scene with this context, it's actually hilarious. So there's a scene at the end where Demi throws himself down the stairs because he's been possessed by the demon and kills himself, right? That's the end of the movie. There's a priest that shows up and gives him his last rites as he's dying, and the priest is profusely crying, right? So this actor is not actually an actor, it's a real priest. They hired him from the Catholic Church in the town. And because he's not an actor, he can't make himself cry and can't make himself look like he's upset. So the director, and this director is notorious for doing things that make people uncomfortable. He was like, okay, we've done this scene now 8 times and you don't look sad enough. So are you ready? And the priest was like, what do you mean, am I ready? And he fucking punched him in the face as hard as he could, like right here. And the priest was like, why'd you do that? And the director was like, film. So he's crying. He's crying and his face is red because he just got decked by the director. So if you go back and watch that scene, that's why it looks real as fuck. I just think it's great. So Regan's bed moves around a lot in this film. Like it moves and it does stuff. When they first created it for the first scene where it does that, it actually fractured her spine because it moved so much and it actually ejected her from the bed. So that scene is in the movie and they kept it. So when you see her scream and freak out, it's because her spine actually got fractured in that scene. There's a spider walk scene in this film. I'm not sure which version you saw. There's a director's cut and then there's the actual cut of the movie. In the director's cut, she spider walks backwards down the stairs and then spits blood everywhere. Right. That scene was taken out of the movie because they thought it looked stupid, but it's been put back in like the early 90s. They put this scene back into the film. And that scene got everybody talking because it's actually terrifying. But originally, they didn't put it in there because they thought it looked silly, which was a big mistake because it's actually pretty creepy. Here's the biggest what the fuck for this film. And we had this too with The Thing. There's an actor in The Thing who was only 44 years old, but looks like he's damn near 60. Wilford Brimley, you remember from The Thing?
No, which one? Which one? They all look old.
So he's the guy with the glasses, the doctor that originally cut open the creature. So we had talked about in the podcast, he was only 44 when that movie was made, but the dude looks like he's 60. Yeah. You don't remember this from our episode of The Thing?
Yeah, no, I remember this exactly. I didn't remember it from. My surprise was this guy only being 44 years old.
Mhm.
I remember that from The Thing.
Yeah. So Father Merrin, the old priest that shows up that they call to do the exorcism,
Yeah.
he is also only 44 years old in this film.
Fuck. Shit, dude. The guy's like this guy is 1 year older than me. God.
Yeah.
Fuck
This
you,
dude
shit.
looks like he's got 1 foot in the grave and he's playing an 80-year-old man. He's 44. That is unbelievable. If you watch this character from the beginning of the movie to the end, it's completely believable that he's 80. But he's 44 years old. The actor's 44. Like, people just aged differently back in the day, bro. They did. They had to.
Yeah.
Fucking weird.
Yeah.
Jason Miller, who plays... Go ahead.
Now that's also the thing that people are now tending to live longer. No,
Yeah.
that's one of the major things why people now, when they're 40, still do not look much older than their 30s. I mean, in comparison, like because there are a lot of people now when they're around 50 look the age people did in the 80s when they were 30. Yeah. Very often it's crazy.
We definitely have a different standard of living nowadays.
Yes, absolutely. Because even if you look at 30-year-olds nowadays, a lot of people like 30 to 40 they, in my opinion, often do not very often look much older than like a little bit over 20.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah, and it's crazy, but yeah, it's just,
I just can't believe this dude is 44 because he looks ancient. Jason Miller, which is the actor who plays Father Karras, who's the young priest, right? He yelled at the
Yes.
director for shooting guns on set. So the director, Friedkin, would fire a real gun on set to get actors startled because he wanted them to look extremely scared in their scenes. So this psycho had a live gun on set that he would shoot into the ceiling to get people to look freaked out in their scenes. The 70s were wild, bro. The set actually caught fire. So the entire set caught fire except for Regan's room. Everything burned down except for the refrigerated demon room, which is nuts. So you see this set in one scene and then it changes because they had to rebuild it really quickly. So if you watch the set design of the house, it changes dramatically because the whole thing burned down. Yeah. And then other than that, probably the most interesting thing is that the laws during the time that this movie was made for filmmaking were not to the point that they are now. So there were things that you could do in the 70s with children in movies that you would not be able to get away with now. And that's why if you go back and watch this, there are scenes in this that you're like, how the fuck did they get away with that? Because the female actor who plays Regan, Linda Blair, she was only 14 when this movie was made. And some of the things that they have her doing in this film are not things that they could get away with nowadays. Like there's scene where they basically have her like stabbing herself in the crotch with a crucifix, which you would never get away with now.
that's
You know what I mean? Like that scene was rough, dude. Like for anybody that would have been rough.
rough. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's it for like interesting tidbits. There's actually a lot more, but I don't want to like bore everybody to death. If you want to know more, there's a documentary about this movie where they go into depth about what happened in the film and how it was made, and it's a super interesting film. I might actually put up the link on here so people can go watch it. Okay, so getting into the movie, there's a super fucking long prologue. And I think it's a lot shorter in the theatrical version, but in the director's cut, this fucking opening scene lasts like 15 minutes. And what it is Father Marin discovers an ancient amulet of Pazuzu in Iraq, right? There's workers that are collapsing on the dig site. They don't know why, but they say they found something. Marin goes in to the dig site and finds like the head of a statue of Pazuzu. And he finds this interesting because he knows what the statue is. He just didn't expect to find it in that area because it exists somewhere else in Iraq. As a lot of people maybe know or don't know, Mesopotamia was the first human settlement on the planet. So we're able to date almost everything historically back to Mesopotamia in Iraq where humans started. And so this dig site is extremely old. And Pazuzu is a Mesopotamian god. He's a wind god. He's not necessarily like an evil god or like anything that would be considered evil. He was just a wind god. But he's one of the earliest gods or deities that we know of from the Mesopotamian area because we have those statues and those relics left over from archaeology. When he finds the head, then he goes to another settlement where there's a huge dig site and he stands in front of the actual statue of Pazuzu that was unearthed a long time ago. Now, this has no context unless you watch the prequel. If you watch the prequel, then you know why this is important. But for this movie, there's no context as to why he finds this interesting or anything like that. After the scene in Iraq, we get this cool shot of Georgetown, Washington, where you see like a really famous bridge that everyone that lives there knows about. And the camera zooms in wide lens to this tiny house, which is the house where Regan is. There's a few things about this movie that don't make sense to me, and I feel like it's worth calling it out because there's no context. Yeah. Why did this demon choose Regan and why Washington? Why is the demon even there? And how did it get to Washington and why? Like I don't understand any of this stuff. Like Georgetown seems like it's not a small town or a small city, but it just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me why here. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean, yeah.
Yeah. So Chris McNeil is introduced. She's the mother. She's an actress. She's filming a campus protest movie. And this is where we also get Burke, which is her friend. He's also the director. he's going to come up a lot in this movie because he's integral to the story. He's kind of a drunk. The guy is drinking on set while she's there filming her part. We don't see this guy in this movie not drinking. Like, this guy is a very functional alcoholic. Anyway, this scene is there to show you that she's kind of a stressed single mom who has a full-time job as an actor, but also has to take care of her daughter.
Yeah.
We go back to the house where Regan is, and we are introduced to Regan, Linda Blair's character. She's a very unassuming, sweet, kind, innocent child. Like, she's your typical 12-year-old, right? And they do a good job of kind of pointing out how innocent she is by the things she talks about. And I think that's important because you see her go from this to what we see her as possessed, which are two polar opposite things. Like, she's a very sweet little girl that's turned into this horrible, venom spewing, profanity laden demon later. She has a Ouija board downstairs, and I think that maybe this is kind of why the demon chose her, or maybe it's all left up to the viewer, like whatever you want to believe.
Yep.
She's playing with this Ouija board. She says there's somebody that she's been talking to called Captain Howdy, and she talks to him over the Ouija board sometimes. Her mom is like, yeah, that's cute, whatever. Doesn't really think anything about it. But there's Christians in general believe that if you use a Ouija board or you use something that invites spirits into your home, that you're asking for trouble, right? And so that's why this scene is in there. It's basically a warning to Christians to not mess with anything that is not sanctioned by the Bible, right? And so that's why we get the Ouija board. Regan starts to get symptoms really quick. There's noises in the attic that the mother thinks are rats, but they don't sound like rats to me. It sounds like something big is in the attic moving around. She goes to her butler and says, hey, can you put traps in the attic? Because I think there's rats up there. I can hear them, whatever. The first signs of possession. So Regan complains to her mom that her bed is shaking. Her mom doesn't really think anything of it. Not a big deal, whatever. She kind of dismisses it as imagination. And now the mom's life starts to unravel a little bit. So they have a drunken party at their house, which everybody that had anything to do with the making of the film that she's doing right now, including the director, is at her house. She's hosting the party. And this is where we get this really cool scene between the director and the butler of the house. So the butler of the house is a Swiss guy. If you hear somebody who speaks Swiss German and they're speaking English, it sounds like German, right? And so the director, if you're an American, Mike, and you have no context about German or what German accent sounds like, it sounds like a German accent. And so he's speaking that way. And Burke, the director, is a Jewish guy who drinks way too much. He notices that that the butler has this accent, and he immediately starts making fun of him and calling him a nut, and will not leave the guy alone. And I think it's a hilarious scene because he just basically follows him around and taunts him and insults him. Nobody tries to stop him. And the butler's like, dude, I'm Swiss. I'm fucking Swiss. Leave me alone. It doesn't stop him. He just keeps fucking with him until towards the end of the party where he basically calls him a pig, and the butler has no choice but to attack him. So there's like this attack scene between the butler and him where they have a fight. And I just love it because the guy's completely smashed out of his mind. Like, he's drunk as fuck. And basically they have to put him out of the house. They're like, yeah, something about the 70s, Mike. This was back in America where a DUI was not a thing. So we were not doing DUIs. So if somebody was completely drunk and belligerent in your house, you just said, hey, leave and go drive yourself home. And that's exactly what they do with this guy. If you notice, they take him to the door and they're like, your car's around the corner. Go drive yourself home. And I'm just like, that would never happen nowadays. So after they put him out, there's the priest who is actually a real priest and can play the piano. So he's downstairs playing the piano for everybody at the party. Regan comes downstairs as they're singing a song and begins pissing on the floor. Like, she just pisses on the floor. And before she does that, she looks at the whole room, who is silent, and says, you're all going to die, which is fucking weird. I'm not really sure what I was thinking about. Like, if I was at this party, I'd be like, you might want to take her to the doctor, like, immediately. What the fuck?
Just maybe.
Just maybe. Yeah. So the bed also, we get another bed violently shaking part where her mother hears her screaming upstairs, runs into the room, and we see the bed shaking and rocking. The mother jumps on top of the bed with her to try to like calm her down, but the bed doesn't stop. This scene to me is a little bit stupid. So I will maybe agree with you on this. This does not provoke any fear in me and did not when I was a Christian kid. I just thought it looked kind of silly.
Yeah.
Not really sure what the deal there is. Like, it looks like a bed that's hooked up to the wall that's shaking, but I let it go. So, because Reagan is having these problems and the bed is shaking and she's saying all these crazy things, her mom decides to get her to the doctor. I don't know if you remember these things, but holy shit, Mike, the machinery at these hospitals looks like shit they got out of the dumpster. This shit is loud as fuck. Like, all of the machines that they use in the hospital are loud as fuck, annoying, and doesn't look like anything that's used today. And
That's true.
they're pretty crazy scenes too. Like, she undergoes kind of a brutal 1970s medical procedure where there's an arterial catheter and a spinal tap. And I have to wonder if maybe this is not one of the scenes that made people leave the theater screaming, because it is kind of a rough watch. Like, she gets the needle in her neck, and then they put the catheter in, and the catheter starts spewing blood all the way down her chest. And for anybody who like doesn't see that kind of thing all the time, this is a little bit of a rough watch. Things kind of start to escalate at home. Reagan attacks people with impossible strength. Like, she does this a few times with the doctors. The doctor comes to the mom one time after Reagan was in there, and he's like, "Has your daughter, does she cuss at home?" And the mom's like, "No, like, Reagan's a really sweet kid. She doesn't cuss. She doesn't say obscene things, anything like that." And he's like, "Well, she let it out on my staff while she was here, and it was pretty profane. I'm not really sure what that is, but you need to monitor at home." And the mom was like, "What exactly did she say?" And the doctor's a little bit hesitant to tell her, but he's like, "Well, to be frank, she told me to get my hands away from her goddamn cunt." Which is not something a fucking 12-year-old would say, because there's no one around her that's talking this way. You know what I mean? So this is your first hint to the fact that there may be something else going on other than just mental illness. And if I was her parent and I heard that, I would be extremely worried, because either there's someone else coming in my house when I'm not around saying terrible things to my daughter that she's repeating, or there's something else going on. The mom is not really religious, right? She's not a religious person. She even says as much. She's like, I'm not religious. I don't believe in anything. So she has no reason to believe that her daughter is possessed by anything. But there are a few things that lead her to believe this down the line, right? See, after a few more tests, and after like she's been seen by multiple head doctors to try and figure out what is going on, because the behavior just gets worse and worse, the mom has a conference with several doctors. The doctors suggest psychiatric issues. They believe that maybe she's exhibiting a form of psychosis and probably needs to go into a mental institution. The mom is vehemently against this. Obviously, no one wants to stick their 12-year-old kid in a mental institution. The mom doesn't like this. She's very vocal about it. She's like, "That's not happening. I'm not going to do that." And then one doctor stands up and says, "Well, there is another option, and that is that we get her an exorcism." And he doesn't say it in that many words. He like beats around the bush for a while before he comes to that. But he says, "Well, even if you don't believe in these kinds of things, it can have an effect on someone with psychosis, because if you do an exorcism, then that can cause the person with psychosis to also believe that they are possessed by a demon, and then the mind will work itself around the psychosis by believing that the demon was exorcised."
Yeah. Mm.
The mom is completely against this. She doesn't like it, but thinks about it for a little while to try to decide if this is maybe the right way to go. After that, we kind of get introduced to Father Karras. Father Karras is kind of in a crisis of faith. He's a Catholic priest that is starting to believe that he's lost his faith in God, that he doesn't believe. And so he's meeting friends at bars that are also priests and talking about his problems. There's not really much you can do with someone who starts to believe that maybe all this stuff is not real, especially people that are part of the church. Like, once you come to that part where you're doubting your faith and you're starting to believe that this is all a big charade, it's all downhill from there. It usually is. And so his friends are trying their best to get him to come around and stay a faithful Catholic. But he's also got something else going on, which is his mother, who is old, basically geriatric, should probably be in some type of old folks' home, right? She's not doing well. He's having to show up to her house, wrap up her legs because she's constantly hurting herself on stuff. This is a big issue for him, and he's not sure what to do with her. His friends are telling him, hey, you should probably put her in an old folks home because you don't need this, and she would be better taken care of somewhere else. He doesn't want to do it. He's fine with leaving his mom where she lives because she is just like every fucking old person, Mike. This is going to happen to you and me. Our parents are going to be old as shit. They're going to be home.
Yeah.
And they're going to be ramming their legs into desk drawers and cutting themselves with knives and doing all the shit that old people do. And they're not going to want to leave their house. I'm not looking forward to this at all. But I'm going to have that discussion with my mom as well. I'm going to be like, Mom, if you cut your hand on one more thing, or you stub your leg or your toe on one more thing, I'm putting you in an old folks home because you can't just stay here unmonitored. And I think this is like a fear that every person has about their parents, right? You ever worry about that shit?
No.
No?
No,
I
not
do.
at all.
Constantly.
No, because it's something I have no control over.
Mm.
I think is like I tend to not worry about things I have absolutely no control over. I mean, I'm going to be there for my parents when that time comes, of course. Nah, but yeah, I don't worry about things like that.
It's always on my
Because
mind. I always worry about it.
how should I say? It's not like I don't think or not care about my parents, but the point is actually the more you worry about it, in my opinion, the more it's going to hit you when it actually comes. That's how I see things. I just genuinely believe you should not worry about things you have absolutely no control over. What you should worry about is things that you can control. I mean, what does not mean I don't think about this stuff that never crosses my mind, or that even outside of this that I don't really think about things happening in the world.
Yeah.
It's just I don't worry about them because, to be purely honest, there's no point. There's no point in worrying about it. Because if you worry about these things or not is not going to change it from happening. What is important is to always tell yourself when something like this happens to somebody that you care about, that you're going to be there for them. That is what is important. Worrying about it is useless. A lot of people would call it careless, more or less. It does actually kind of come across like you being a very careless person. What I just see entirely differently. You brought up with your parents, but it's also a thing you can apply to like anything else. You can apply it to politics. You can apply it to a lot of things going on in this world that are pretty fucking bad, and a lot of people worry about all the time. Like they're worrying about a war breaking out. They're worrying about the climate collapsing. They're worrying about, I don't know, some politician doing something insanely stupid again. What happens all the time. But at the end of the day, these things are going to happen if you worry about them or not. Worrying about them is absolutely pointless and does absolutely nothing. But actively doing something or trying at least to do something against it, that's another thing.
Yeah.
Or talking about it.
I just think that it's the reason I bring it up is it's interesting because this is something that has not happened. No change has happened in the United States since 1972.
That is true. That is true.
If you have an old person that is by themselves all day, the propensity for them to hurt themselves or something to happen to them while you're not there is pretty big. Thankfully, everybody has cell phones now, and if they're lucky enough to fall down when they have their cell phone on them, they can call you, right? At this time, that didn't happen. So if something happens to his mom, he's not there to take care of her. And then, medical insurance and the medical system in America is diabolical. So old people, when they get that way and have to go into a home, you're lucky if you don't have to mortgage your own house just to be able to take care of your aging family member, because putting them in an old folks home is so ridiculously expensive that most people can't afford it. So then what do you do with old people? In Germany, I think it's probably a little bit better. You guys have a better system for that kind of thing. But in America, this is a huge, huge deal.
Yeah.
And a lot of the time it's career ending because someone has to stay home with that person if you're not able to put them in an old folks home.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what he's dealing with. He doesn't want to put her in an old folks home. And so his mom is on his mind constantly.
Mhm.
Finally, the mother's brother shows up and takes her out of the house and puts her into basically what amounts to a government funded mental facility. And this happens a lot, and this still happens. This has not changed in America. So if you don't have the money to take an old person and put them in an old folks home where they're comfortable and taken care of, your next best option is to say, "Oh, they're losing their mind. So I'm just going to put them in a government funded mental institution." And that's what the brother does. Ultimately, this ends up killing her, right?
Yeah.
She dies. So the brother takes her to the mental institution, puts her in there. Demi doesn't really know that. He finds out about it, goes and gets the brother of his mom, and they both go to the mental institution, and she's there in the bed. And immediately she starts making him feel bad about it. Like she starts saying, "I don't want to be here. You've basically left me to die." All these terrible things that she's throwing on his head at this time. And ultimately, he has to leave her there. He doesn't have a choice. But she dies there overnight. And of course, this causes Demi or Father Karras to feel extremely guilty, right? He feels guilty about his mom's death. He
Yeah.
feels like it's his fault. And that's important because that's something that the demon exploits later. Because the demon knows what your biggest fear is, it knows what your guilts are, and it uses them against you. Right. And so that's why we got this scene. The demon activity at home starts to skyrocket. Burke, who is the director of the film that the mother was in, comes over and hangs out with Regan because she's in a bad state. Comes over and hangs out with her while the mother is at work. We don't see any of this, of course. We just know it happened. Right. So
Yeah.
the mother comes home expecting Burke to be there, and Burke is not there. And the window to Reagan's room is wide open. And so she's like, "What the fuck? I expected him to be here and take care of my daughter while I'm gone at work, and he's not here. Where did he go?" She shuts the window, and that's all that's said about it. She's just like, "Well, I guess he was here, and then he got drunk and left," which is understandable because this guy does stuff like that. He gets wasted and then goes wandering off in the streets. So that's not actually what happens, and we find that out later because there is a private detective that comes to Father Karras and says, "Hey, there's this thing that happened, and I wanted to talk to you about it." Uh, there is Father Karras works at the university, like he's a university minister, and so the university is right next door to where the house is, and so that's why he came to him, and he says, "Hey, there's this guy that we found at the bottom of these stairs down the street from here. It looks like it's a murder. It doesn't look like he just fell, right? His head has been twisted completely around backwards on the body. That's not something that can happen if somebody falls down the stairs. So I believe that he was murdered. And I want to know if you at this university, since you talk to the students all the time and you have a good idea of who's in the student body, if you think that there's someone who could have done this." Father Karras immediately says, "No, I don't know anybody who would do anything that horrendous, but keep following up on it because it sounds like you're on the right path. What we find out though is Reagan has an episode where she starts basically speaking in tongues and using different voices with the mother. So the mother comes up to Reagan's room, realizes the bed is moving around again, and the daughter is flipping out. She's stabbing herself in the crotch with a crucifix. This is like one of the hardest scenes that the MPAA board tried to get removed from the movie, but the director was like, "No, this is super important. We're leaving this in the film. This is a shocking part. We're leaving it." And I can't believe they were able to leave it in the film because you wouldn't be able to get away with this today. right? So she's stabbing herself in the crotch with a crucifix. There's blood everywhere. She says, fuck me, Jesus, fuck me, Jesus. She's just stabbing herself in the crotch. The mom runs up, wrestles the crucifix out of her hand, and throws Regan back on the bed. This is one of the cool scenes that's completely practical because you have to remember at this time there was no CGI. Like
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
relied heavily on just practical effects. Regan's sitting in the bed with her back to her mom, and her head turns 180 degrees and looks back at the mother, right? And this is an extremely unsettling scene. This is the scene, this entire scene where she's stabbing herself with the crucifix and her head spinning around, where I was as a child, I was like, what the fuck? I should not be watching this.
Mm-hmm.
I should not be watching this. I am going to hell because I saw this movie. This fucking poor 10-year-old kid. Fuck. I'm going to hell because I saw this movie. Her head turns around 180 degrees, looks at the mother, and then she says in Burke's voice, which is the guy who's dead now, she says in his voice, do you know what she did to me? Your cunting daughter. So this lets the mom know that she's the one that actually murdered Burke. So she twisted his head around and threw him out of her bedroom window down the stairs, and that's why he's dead. So this is something that only the mother knows. Only she knows this because Regan only told her, right?
Yeah.
And so the next thing that she does is she goes to Father Karras, who was just talked to by the private detective, and says, hey, I need some help. She's starting to believe now that exorcism is probably the way to go because none of these things that she is doing or the symptoms that Regan has are normal. They're not normal psychosis things. So she says, what do you feel about exorcism? Do you think that maybe this would be the right route? Father Karras is a priest who has no faith anymore. He doesn't really believe in God necessarily.
Yeah.
Also, he has a background as a psychologist. So he's sitting there trying to convince her, you know, it's not what you think it is. She's not possessed. She probably has some form of psychosis. On top of that, if you wanted to do an exorcism, getting the Catholic Church to do anything like that is like pulling teeth because there's a long list of things that we have to check the boxes and say, yes, she's doing this, she's doing this, she's doing this, before we're even able to get an audience with the church to get them to do an exorcism. So the mom says, okay, what are these things that she needs to exhibit before we can get her an exorcism? And Father Karras says, well, one, she has to openly speak a language that she was never taught and doesn't natively speak. If we can get her to do that, that checks one box. If she's able to move things around a room without touching them, that's also something that is a box that we have to check. And there's a whole laundry list of other things. The mom is like, well, she does all those things and I can show you. So why don't you just come to the house with me and we'll go look at it? Father Karras is like, this is futile. This makes no sense. This is stupid, but yeah, I'll go with you. I know she's not possessed. That's ridiculous. So he goes to the house. First thing Regan does is start speaking in Latin. So she starts chanting in Latin, which is not a language that anybody in the United States learns, Mike. We don't really teach languages in the United States anyway. Like
Yeah.
I took 3 years of German in high school and I did not learn any German in high school. There are buddies of mine who took like 4 years of French and couldn't speak any French. Like we don't actually teach languages in the United States.
What do they teach you in German class?
Oh my God, dude. It's so stupid. And probably a lot of Americans will echo the same thing back. Like it's you go in and they have words up on the wall all the way around the room that's in German and you learn how to say the simple stuff like Dankeschön and like what things are called. So a car is called an auto and so on. But it's 4 years of that. And then every once in a while they'll bring in like a German speaker to speak to the class. But there's no actual language learning. It's basically like an introduction to culture is all it is.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Basically, if this is gonna sound so trashy, like I'm just bashing on Americans at this point, but basically these things are set up for if you decide at some point to leave your own town, right? Which 78% of Americans don't do. If you decide to leave your own town, and God forbid decide to go to a foreign country, which is unheard of, then you might be able to use something that we taught you in this class. That's all it is. It's a study of culture and not really the language. Because how do I say this? How do I say this without getting hate? American schools the curriculum is built around being digestible for the stupidest person in the class.
I'm going to bring in something. How is that different from European schools?
Well,
And
it didn't used to be that way in Europe. It is that way now.
Yeah, but the only thing, in my opinion, you actually learn in school is how to be a good soldier, how to fit in line. That is like, I mean, other than writing, math, and science, that might be something to a certain degree you learn in school. But when it comes to life in general, you do not learn anything that's useful in life in school. The only thing that you learned is to be a good soldier and to fit into society. That's pretty much it.
Okay. So I'm 46, you're 44, right? So I had
43.
43. So when I was in high school, I had a whole bunch of friends who were foreign exchange students. Most of them were German, right? And they came to our high school and they were like, I could literally drink all night, show up to class late, sleep through the class, and still pass all of these tests because your curriculum is in line with what we learn in the first grade. So these kids, and this was like my junior year of high school.
Yeah,
they were
true.
like, yeah,
okay, that's true. Yeah,
they were learning, trigonometry and all these college level things that we were not learning and had never even heard of. So the German curriculum at the time was so much better than the American curriculum. But I get the feeling now that they're about neck and neck, right?
mostly. Yeah.
What happened? What changed? Yeah. I don't know. The education system is being defunded everywhere. I don't think it's just America. I think it's Europe.
I think it's way too complicated. How should I say it? It's way too complicated to exactly say what happened, or how it came to that extreme because there are so much factors that led up to it worldwide. This is not a problem only in Germany. It's worldwide, where it's very difficult to pinpoint a specific cause of it. No. Yeah, but I do not have very positive views on school system or society as a whole. Never have
No.
had, because how should I say it? I did not learn anything useful in school. To me, no, I mean, reading, math. That was pretty much it. Other than that, outside of that, I did not learn anything that was useful to my life in school. Also, history class. German high school history. Now, maybe not now, but when I was in school, German high school history class is World War II. Literally.
Yeah.
Literally.
I can imagine.
It's not that way now, but I remember from the 8th and 9th grade, specifically 9th grade, the only thing I ever remember hearing in German high school is World War II, an entire year. That's what you're taught in German school. That might be different now, but it's how it was when I was in school.
So the American joke, and maybe you can clear some things up for some Americans, since you're actually like in the position to finally clear this up once and for all because you're an American that grew up in Germany and went to the German school system. The American joke, and I think even Family Guy did the joke, is like, if you're German and you go to history class in Germany, they're like, yeah, history starts here and then goes to the 1930s, and then all of a sudden we're in the we're in the 60s. Like that, whatever happened right from 1934 to 1961 didn't happen. Like nothing happened there. They just like skip over that completely, so the Germans don't have to like know what happened in World War II. But that's not what happened at all. You guys are beat over the head with what happened in World War II, right?
Yeah, that's it is It is literally the exact opposite when it comes to histories. I mean, not in elementary school or whatever, but I mean, there is no actual high school in Germany. It's just no.
Yeah, right.
They have a more complicated school system, but you just have grades. You just have class 1 basically up until class 12, until year school 12. And
Right.
then, of course, there's normal school, then there's school for smart people, and then there's the school for even smarter people. Hauptschule, Realschule, und Gymnasium. More or
Yeah.
less. It's a little bit more complicated, but at least when it comes to the normal German school that you are not at, if you're not like some super hot smart, if you're smarter than other people, the only thing you hear about in German school history after the 8th grade is World War II, specifically into the smallest
Crazy.
detail. To the point that when you're in German school, you feel like German history did not exist before World War II. That's how bad
Okay.
it is.
That's kind of what I thought. Yeah.
And yeah, it might be different now, but yeah, that's like, and at the time, if you asked any of my classmates, any of my friends, if I asked any people in my age or they're older than me, anything about German history, nobody out of memory could tell you anything except for World War II.
Jesus Christ.
If you even ask the majority of German people I know, they can barely tell you from history anything beyond World War II. What a few people might know, of course, is the 30-year war. That, by the way, only lasted for like 24, 25 years.
24 years.
Maybe another thing a lot of people know, Bismarck and stuff like that. But the normal person, if you ask them about German history, it always refers back to that one topic. And it doesn't help that the media, by the way, also, when it comes to history, World War II. Next channel, World War II. Next channel, World War II.
Yep. Yep. And every year, without fail, Hollywood puts out a movie about them.
Exactly.
That's the other thing. You are completely beat over the head with it. And this is something maybe this is a good time to talk about a little bit of that. But Germany just in general, I don't feel like is allowed to rise above any of that because they're constantly beat down by it. They're constantly confronted with it. And then of course everyone from every other country besides maybe America reminds you of it constantly, right?
Yeah,
So you're not able as a culture to rise above World War II. What happened?
Yeah, you're constantly reminded of it. That is clear. That is a specific thing from the issue that Germans have. You're constantly reminded of it. Not necessarily from everybody else, man, but even within the own Germany, you're constantly reminded of it.
Oh yeah.
No? And
yeah.
What is one factor why a lot of Germans are fed up with it? A lot. What leads a lot of Germans, also one factor, leads a lot of Germans voting to, well, the exact kind of political groups, in my opinion, that they should not be voting for. Because I'm not a right-wing person, and I do not like right-wing politics, and I do not think people should be voting for these political parties. But I don't judge people for doing so, because there are a lot of reasons why people worldwide are doing this.
I mean, I get it. It's a broader discussion for sure. But I have to wonder, as an American living here, and I've been working on and off in Germany for 24 years, right? And have ultimately decided to live here. I don't feel like it's fair at this point. I don't feel like it's fair at this point to the Germans. Yeah, because you're constantly confronted with it. It's always in your face. And then if Germany does something good, right? And we've seen this multiple times. If they do something good and they ultimately become the powerhouse of Europe again, and you're supporting every other country with money and grants, and anytime a country needs to be bailed out on the euro, then it's always Germany to do it. They don't get the thanks for it. They don't get the props. And then on top of that, whenever you don't do that as a country and you decide, hey, these people don't need help, or they, we don't need to give them our money, you're automatically called in. I think that's extremely unfair. And I think we need to maybe let go of that because it's starting to hold Germany back.
Yeah, it does. It does. And for multiple reasons, it has led to the German government very often put money everywhere. investing money in everything except in their own country. Not all the
Mhm.
time. So you can't really say like a lot of extremist people like they don't do nothing at all and blah blah blah. That's not true. It's
Yeah.
complicated. It's complicated.
Right. Mhm.
Just like politics always are. It's kind of always the thing, you know. It's never really easy to pinpoint the issues society has down to one singular thing. Yes, a lot of things is based on government fuck up, basically, more or less.
Yeah,
No,
I know.
and
It's
yeah,
like I said, it's a broader discussion, but I just think if there are, and I mean, I don't see the numbers from the podcast and who watches it, but I would assume there's a lot of Americans, and we tend
mostly.
to live, yeah, mostly we tend to live in a bubble over there, right? And so we only believe what we see on TV and what we can read and all this stuff. And in Germany, there's an epidemic of cultural hatred that I despise. I can't stand it because I'm proud of this culture. As an American, I can say I'm
Political
proud of the.
hatred. Okay,
Huh?
well,
Yeah.
yeah, well, I never really saw it as an epidemic. That's what I've been seeing.
Well,
How
I
for
mean, if
for
your neighbor hangs up a German flag and the neighbor next door says "fucking" because you're hanging up a
yeah,
German flag,
but that's nothing
what
new
the
in
fuck, dude?
that's nothing new in Germany, Matt. That
Yeah,
is,
I know it's
from
nothing
my
new. That's the
opinion,
problem.
growing up in Germany, that's nothing new. That's it's not an epidemic. It's always been that way.
Yeah, well, what I mean is it's just getting worse.
Mm,
It's just I think it's getting worse, dude. Like, cause I was here in um 1999, 1998, and 1999, and that was a completely different Germany than what we're seeing right now. There was a little bit more of being able to be German and maybe being a little bit proud to be German because there are some really good things that have come out of this country and it's done well. And now any kind of being proud of being a German or being someone who's a part of this country or even just being proud of German. I get it as an American. I'm like, fucking love this country. It's making some stupid decisions, but at the same time, I can say honestly, I'm proud of what they've done. Even me, they're like, oh, fucking nationalist. What? No. Like it's okay to be proud of some things and say that you're doing well without being an, you know what I mean? It's extreme both
yeah,
ways.
yeah. Well, by the way, Matt, you're gonna have to edit that word out.
Oh yeah. I know.
Yeah,
I'll just beep it, but
yeah.
whatever. Anyway, that's we're going off on a tangent, but maybe it's interesting for people to like
Mm,
hear it a little bit, especially if you don't hear anything about it in the States.
yeah.
Anyway, you want to take a quick break? So we are back from our break. Hopefully you enjoyed our rant about Germany. Came out of nowhere, but I still think it's pretty fucking interesting. Anyway, as
Yeah.
far as the movie goes, we were at the point where Father Karras is gone to see Regan now, right? So he's talking to her. She speaks Latin. She starts taunting him about his dead mother, which she had no prior knowledge about the mother being dead. So this is kind of the point for him where he's like, okay, maybe I'm wrong. Maybe this is actually a possession. She has no reason to know that my mother is dead. She's speaking in tongues and different languages that she was never taught before. So he's already checked two of the major blocks that he would need to request an exorcism. And so this whole thing's pretty interesting, Mike, because he is a priest who's lost his faith. He has no belief in God anymore, and he's been struggling with that. This whole thing kind of renews his faith, right? So he's still kind of on the fence on whether or not, maybe not whether or not there's a God, but maybe whether or not it is the Christian God or that he's really following the right set of dogma, right? So anyway, he feels like he has the evidence he needs to go ahead and request an exorcism. And I also think that he also feels like that's probably the only avenue at this point because the things
Yeah.
that are coming out of this girl's mouth are not things that would come out of a 14-year-old's mouth that was just going through psychosis. This is something completely different. And so he tries his best to rationalize the symptoms, right? But there's nothing there that he can rationalize. Like it is obviously something more
Yeah.
than psychosis. And he realizes it's beyond any type of psychiatry. So he requests an exorcism. We get a scene where he goes into the Catholic Church and talks with the bishop and says, hey, here's what's going on. This girl is basically in her bedroom. She's 12 years old. She's speaking languages she was never taught before. She's saying obscene things. She knew that my mother was dead without any prior knowledge of that, and she used that against me. So this is obviously a possession, and we need to request an exorcism. The church agrees. They take all of his evidence and they look at it and they say, "Yeah, this is exactly what this is, and we will get you someone, but we don't know who." Right before he goes to the church, and he's in the room the last time with Regan before he goes to the church, he takes holy water, Vaibhasa,
Yeah.
and shakes it on her, right? And when he does that, she starts speaking in a language nobody's ever heard before. He can't understand it and he can't place it. Um, and takes that back into a laboratory after he talks to one of his friends who's also a priest and says, "Hey, what is this language she's speaking?" And the priest says, "Oh, it's actually English, but it's backwards. So she's speaking English backwards." So he puts it in the tape recorder and plays the tape backwards. And what you get is a long soliloquy of Bible verses that are being said, and then one name, which is Marin, right? She says Marin. She screams it twice. He's never heard the name before. He doesn't know what it is.
Yeah.
But when he goes to the church to request an exorcism, what the bishop says is that the person that we want to do this exorcism with you is Father Marin. So we have an idea now that this particular demon, Pazuzu, and Father Marin have a history of some kind, or else the demon would not be screaming his name. So they get Father Marin because his time in Iraq is now over and he's back in the country. And they call him and they say, "Hey, we need you for an exorcism because we know that you've performed one before because we sanctioned one in Africa." And there's a little bit of back and forth about that exorcism and what happened. And that exorcism lasted 12 days and nearly killed him. But he was able to get it done. And that's why they're calling him, because it was 12 years ago and he's the most recent priest to have performed an exorcism. So they call him, they get him to the house. We get the iconic scene of him getting out of the taxi and standing in front of the house underneath the light, which is also the cover of the movie. If you see the movie poster, is him standing in front of the light. By the way, these places are all real too. These stairs are actually in Georgetown, Washington, that are used in the movie. The house is real. It's all still there. So if you're a horror fan and you're like really into this movie, just go to Georgetown. You can walk up and down the steps and go see the house where this was filmed. Pretty cool. So he comes into the house. He meets the mother. He meets Karis. He basically says, "Hey, look, this demon is a trickster." And so this is where you get the idea that the demon is just kind of a troll. Like I said before, this demon is not there to like take over the world. It's not there to like do evil things. It's there to just torture everyone and be a complete troll. And at one point, the demon told Father Karras, "I'm the devil."
Yeah.
And so Karras brings that back up and says, "Well, this thing says that it's the devil. It doesn't say that it's some demon. It says it's the devil." And Karras says, "Well, I love how nonchalant this, or not Karras, but Marin. I love how nonchalant this guy is. He's just very matter of fact about the whole thing. He's like, yeah, you know, it's a demon. It's a liar. It's just going to tell you a bunch of shit that's not true. And it's just going to say things to shock you. Don't worry about it. If it says something that's mean or shocking, don't feed into it. Don't react to it. Just continue with the exorcism. It'll all be fine." He's very like, if a normal person walked into this room and looked at this girl, they would be terrified. She's got cuts all over her face. Her skin is starting to decompose. She's a mess. Anybody else would be completely freaked out by this. This priest doesn't bat an eyelash. He's just like, "I've seen this before. Not a big deal. But we'll go in there and get this shit done and we'll be home before breakfast,
Yeah.
I just love how charismatic and chill this dude is about this whole thing, right? But what's funny is he is completely taken aback once he gets in there and he realizes what's really going on. You get the feeling that this is not something he's seen before, at least not to this extent, right? They go in, he looks at the girl and he's like, "Shit, this is worse than I thought," The whole time, the demon, Pazuzu, is taunting the fuck out of them. And I love this entire dialogue in this part. She says things like, "Your mother's in here with us. Do you want to talk to her?" And then uses her voice again and taunts Father Karras with his mother's voice. and says things like, "You like this little girl? You should fuck her in the ass. Come on, fuck her in the ass." Like all these terrible, awful, terrible things that are coming out of this little 12-year-old girl's mouth. Your mother sucks cocks in hell. By the way, Mike, Scary Movie 3, I think it is, does an entire opening scene of this scene right here, and it's fucking
I know.
holy shit. But this is arguably one of the most iconic scenes in horror. Like everybody knows this scene. Everybody knows the insults. You know, it's repeated constantly. This entire end of the movie is fantastic. You also get the split pea green soup puking scenes over and over and over again. She pukes in these guys' faces. This was Chrissy's big thing about this movie. She's also not religious and wasn't raised like religious. So she's like, I don't think the movie's scary. I just think it's one of the most disgusting movies I've ever seen. I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, well, all the demon does is piss all over stuff and spit green pea soup in everybody's face. It's just disgusting. She's right. She's right. I mean, this demon doesn't do much of anything except for do gross things and insult people.
Yeah.
And I love it. I'm here for it.
I
Fucking
mean,
great.
Yeah, this is like these scenes are the only interesting scenes in the entire movie that I think are funny too, but it's not scary. It's just like, I mean, it's like there's no way. I mean, just like you said, if you're an atheist and you're not raised as an extremely religious person, and the most Germans aren't. I mean, the most Germans are Catholic, either are Christians, Catholic, or evangelic. But even then, it's like religion is something, you know. Germans talk about it when they go to the church on Sunday. Outside of that, nobody gives a shit.
No, I know.
You don't hear Germans ever talking about religion. It's like
No.
they don't care. I mean, the most Germans I know so far are like, why are you talking about religion? It's not Sunday. We're not in church. That's how the most Germans react to it.
Right. That's the attitude in a society that's not primarily controlled by Christianity, though, or Islam or whatever else. Like that was always the really shocking thing to me as a kid, because I was 17 when I came here the first time, and I just visited for like 2 weeks or whatever, and then I came back again when I was 18 and stayed for like another month, and then eventually moved here. But the first shocking thing was that nobody asked me what church I went to. Because the first thing that happens in America, at least in like Southern America, is people meet you. They're like, "Oh, hey, yeah, I'm so and so. What church do you go to?" Like it is heavily part of society in the States, and to come to a place like this where people basically look at you funny if you're talking about religion or God or whatever is like a breath of fresh air.
Yeah,
It's like a breath of fresh air because Christianity just dominates society in America. It's in politics. It's in everything.
It does. It's everything. In Germany, it's kind of crazy. It's just like I have never been asked that question, and I also, what church do you go to? Neither is it something people don't even ask each other. What church do you go, or do you even go to church? It's just
I know, but this is the thing.
I moved out of the States when I was like 10. I think it was 10 or 11. So, as a kid, you don't really notice those things much. But here in Germany, if I hear like the thing from you and from other Americans, or what you hear generally, you know, about the US, that they're that extreme, it's mind-boggling to me, because it's just like, even though I also grew up in a Christian country, but it's something nobody really cares about, religion, you know? You're either the one thing or you're the other thing, but nobody really cares which thing you actually are.
That's the thing that is odd, and I don't think you really understand unless you travel. So all these Americans, or you know, even people that are from Islamic countries, if you leave where you are and go experience other cultures, you realize how fucked up you actually are. I don't really know any other way to say it. That's probably going to offend some people. I don't really care. You live in a society dominated by religion. You are shackled to fear, period.
Yeah.
And until you get out and you go experience other places where people live freely and it's not completely dominated by that atmosphere, you don't realize how fucked up you really are. And that's why I encourage people, get the fuck out of the house, read a history book, travel, see other things. You become a more well-rounded person and you realize the bubble of fear that you've been living in. It's weird and it's sad. And the reason this movie had the effect it had, like I said at the beginning of this episode, is that American culture at this time was dominated by the church.
Mm.
And if the church had not dominated society in the way that it was, this movie would not have done as well as it did. You know, and that's saying a lot.
Yeah,
Because, like
of
you
course.
said, if you're an atheist or someone who really has no religious context, this movie is not scary. I agree with you. Absolutely.
No.
It's not scary and it's a little bit boring. But if you are a Christian or someone who has a little bit of faith, this movie is terrifying. Absolutely fucking terrifying. Anyway, I digress. So you get this entire scene where the exorcism is going on. They're basically reading passages from the Bible the whole time, basically to drown out everything the demon's saying. Does not work very well. They're not getting anywhere. And you kind of get the feeling from Father Marin, like, well, this is not really going to plan. This is not exactly how I expected this to happen. If you watch the prequel, you understand that the other exorcism was much easier than this, although it was the same demon. Right. So it doesn't work. At one point, the demon taunts Father Karras again with his mother's voice, and Karras starts to react to it and get angry. And Father Marin realizes this and tells him to basically leave the room. He's like, you go outside the room until you can compose yourself and come back. Father Karras goes outside of the room, walks around a little bit, tries to calm down, comes back into the room. And when he comes back into the room, Father Marin is dead. So Father Marin is laid down on the bed, face down, and the demon has freed itself from the shackles it was in, tied to the bed, and is just sitting above Father Marin's body, laughing maniacally. This completely sets Father Karras off and just makes him extremely angry. So he goes into kind of a blind rage, jumps on top of the bed, and grabs Regan around the neck, pulls her to the ground, and starts choking her, and says, leave her alone, take me instead, take me instead. He's trying to get the demon to leave her and go into him. And I think that this plan was something he already had in his head because he has a lot of guilt about what happened to his mother. He's not in a good place right now, and he kind of feels like maybe he can redeem himself in God's eyes by suiciding himself if he can get the demon to get inside of him. Right. And so that's what happens.
It's not suicide.
He holds Regan on the floor. He screams at the demon and, huh? What?
No, I just said what he's doing is not suicide. It's sacrificing himself. And if you can actually take towards the Bible, that is also something, if you sacrifice yourself for the life of another, that you will win God's grace or something like that.
Yep. It's basically martyrdom is what it comes down to. But that's what he does. The demon jumps from Reagan's body into his. You see his face change a little bit into kind of like what we've noticed on Reagan's face. Changes. He screams and he jumps out the window, the same window that the other guy was thrown out of. Jumps out of that window, lands on the steps, breaks his neck, rolls all the way down to the bottom of the stairs. And as far as we know, he died with the demon inside of him because Regan wakes up, crawls across the room, and starts screaming in her own voice for her mom. So we know that the demon's left her body and isn't his. There's a friend of Father Karras, who's the other priest. He's the guy that we saw at the party earlier. This is the scene I'm talking about where he gives him his last rites as he's dying at the bottom of the stairs, but the director punched him in the face to make him look like he was crying. Gives him his last rites. Father Karras dies. Father Marin is already dead. Basically, the demon got what it wanted. All it did was it wanted to destroy, people's idea of God and get under people's skin, and he wanted to corrupt something innocent, which is exactly what he did. The demon doesn't die, of course. The demon just goes somewhere else. But it took two priests, and that's the argument that a lot of people miss if you don't have a religious context watching this movie. The purpose of Satan and the purpose of demonology was to kill, murder, maim, and destroy innocence. And this demon got exactly what it wanted. It got 2 lives of 2 priests. And so for Christians, this movie does not end on a good note. This movie ends on, hey, now there are 2 priests that are dead. and the demon won. Whereas your normal average person watching this movie is like, "Oh, hey, what a great ending. The little girl is back to normal and everything's fine." Right? So for Christians, again, this has another connotation to the ending than it does for normal people. The next scene we get is that priest that gave Father Karras his last rites visiting the family again, probably a month later. The little girl is completely back to normal. The mother and her are moving back to Hollywood to the other house that they had built. And that's basically the end of the movie. Right.
Yeah.
I think this was done brilliantly because, and it's obviously a movie that was made for Christians. This was
Yeah.
not made
Yeah.
for people like you. This was not made for people who don't have a religious context. Because at the end of this movie, if you were a Christian, a devout Christian that made it through this movie, you felt like you needed to go take a shower afterwards because the demon won. The demon puked its way and insulted its way through the entire movie and took 2 priests with it. So it won. And for that reason alone, the church was putting things in the newspaper like, don't go see this movie because it's basically a satanic film where the demon wins. And if you're giving your money to this movie, you're giving your money to Satan. And so the church had a fit over this film, and it got notoriety just because of what happens in the movie and what the outcome of the film is. And it's absolutely brilliant. There is not another movie, period. And I've looked it up. There is not another movie that does what this movie does to someone that is religious watching this film. Like, this movie is a gut punch to Christians completely. And for that reason alone, I think it's an enigma because there's not another one like this that exists. It's brilliantly filmed. The acting is fantastic. All of the effects are practical. It's based on a true story. So not everything that happens in the book is a true story, but it's based on a true story that happened in the exact same town where it's filmed
Yeah.
and where it takes place. And there's whole documentaries about that actual case, and the similarities to that case in this film are not 1-on-1, but they're very, very close. So the things that you see happening in this film are almost 1-for-1 what was taken from the actual case and how it happened. So if you have any interest in this movie in the background, go watch the documentary about the actual case. Super interesting. I personally don't have anything bad to say about the film. I really don't.
Yeah. I agree with you on the most points for the impact it had and why it had that impact. Objectively, I have also nothing bad to say about it. It's just everything I have to say about it is my personal opinion, and I just thought it was boring. Just like I said, and this is like when it comes to horror stuff, I expect demons to do something. But even when I was a teenager, I watched this with my friends, and we were all super fucking bored because even though a lot of my friends were Christians, Germans are like I was sitting there with my friends. We're like 5 guys and 2 girls, nah, and we were sitting there like, where is this supposed to be scary? And we were laughing our asses off at it because the only thing this demon does is basically tells people to go fuck themselves.
Yeah.
And me and one of my best friends were like, God damn it, this could be us lying in that bed. I sometimes say the same shit. And this is like, we really were laughing at it because we could not see how this could horrify anyone.
Yeah. Which is fair.
Yeah.
Which is fair. I think that if nothing else, if the movie didn't scare you, then it probably wasn't meant for you, right? If it did scare you, then that is a case study in the power of religion and belief.
Yeah.
And the stranglehold that it has on some cultures. It's a perfect case study for that kind of thing. So,
Yeah.
if you came from a place where religion wasn't prevalent and you weren't raised that way and you don't have that fear, then yes, this movie's boring as shit. I will absolutely agree with you on that. However, it knew what it was doing with its audience.
Yeah.
And for that reason alone, it's an enigma. Because I would love, because this movie, Mike, is truly, truly terrifying if you are a Christian. And I would love to I'd love to give some people that context and make them understand what it's like to believe some of the things that you're taught when you're young if you're a Christian, and then see this movie, because then it takes on a completely different tone. But it didn't have to impress everyone to do what it did. It just needed to impress the American public and then
Yeah.
whatever other public around the world that was extremely religious. I
Yeah,
know
the
that
most. Yeah, I mean,
um,
just like the most.
people
The most.
that are
I don't remember.
people that are Islamic had a problem with this film as well.
Probably. I probably. Nah.
Hmm.
But it was just funny thing is just like in Europe, it was not. This movie was not, as far as what I remember. I was a kid. And even when I was a kid and a teenager, back in Europe, The Exorcist was a movie everybody knew, but
Yeah,
it did not really cause any uproar in Germany. For the
yeah,
most Europeans outside of Italy, yeah, this is just another horror movie.
yeah, and probably not a very good one if you're not religiously inclined.
Yes, of
I
course.
can see that.
Germans have their thing with horror movies. They're very, very extreme when it comes to that. When it comes to editing or what, if you go to the movie theaters or watch a movie on back in the day on tape or on DVD, it was something different. But German horror movies in Germany, if you watch them in normal TV, they're unwatchable because they're extremely edited. It was back in the day. There was even times where normal action movies were heavily, heavily edited. No, just like we
Yeah,
had this in multiple other episodes
yeah,
was just crazy, like the differences between Europeans and America. I
yeah,
mean, actually, how I say to a certain degree, I understand more the European side than the American side because it's just like violence is okay, but boobies are bad.
yeah. For the Americans, yeah,
For the Americans and the Europeans is like they show boobies all day long, nobody cares. But show
yeah,
somebody getting punched in the face, oh my god, oh
yeah.
no, that no.
And it sounds strange coming from a horror fan, but I tend to agree with that. Like we
Yeah,
should not be demonizing sex or demonizing the human body in any way, but violence should be demonized. Absolutely.
yes,
But
absolutely.
unfortunately, with horror movies, violence and gore is the thing. And I
Yeah,
kind of feel like maybe that's going the way of the dodo here in Germany too. Like we're kind of changing as a culture over here in terms of what we'll show because there was that huge argument that first of all, Evil Dead 1 and 2 were banned in this country
for a very long
until
time.
like 2003, I think is when it finally wasn't banned anymore. Um More
Yeah.
than that, the most mainstream gore horror movies, specifically Terrifier, there was a huge discussion within the government and the ratings board in Germany if they were going to release these movies in theaters. And ultimately, the ratings board lost and they were able to release all three versions in the theater unedited. That is the first time that's happened in Germany because what happens in those movies is probably the most grotesque shit you're going to see on a screen in a theater. So the restrictions are loosening here for video games as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's loosening, of course, but how should I say it? Hard to find the right words. Yes, everything is loosening, and it's nowadays, I would say, not really bad at all. I mean, if you look at movies nowadays, the way they're edited in Germany, there's not much difference anymore between the States and Germany. Not much, at least. Only like the
Mm-mm.
most extreme shit is cut out in Germany or a lot of other European countries. Yeah, so yeah, society is changing all over the world.
Yeah.
Even though this is like pretty much at the end, even though to a lot of people now it feels like everything is getting worse and the world is more like ending and everything's going down the drain. I just don't believe so, man. No.
Mm-mm. No,
Uh,
no, I don't believe so either.
I truly believe we are heading toward a future that is way better than what we have now,
Yeah.
or that we would have had in the past. And I do believe it is going to get a lot better. But before that, it's also going to get a lot worse. If I think, yeah, I mean, if that makes sense too. There might be a lot of people that does not make
Yeah,
much
no,
sense.
I don't think there's anything new under the sun. I think that all of these
Mm.
terrible things that are happening have happened before. The world was probably a little bit more volatile at the time that this movie came out than it is now. There's
Yeah,
people that don't want to admit that, but we were at a place in America where we had just come out of the Vietnam War, and that was arguably one of the worst wars with the highest body count that we'd had at that time. The Iraq War and the Afghanistan War, the numbers don't even come close, death
To
toll wise, to what happened in Vietnam. So wars have gotten less deadly. The world is in a better spot. We're definitely a lot more left leaning than we used to be. It's just historical context, man. Like,
Yeah.
if you're experiencing this stuff for the first time in your life, which a lot of these people are that are raising hell about it, this stuff has all happened before. It's just new to you. But arguably, we are making some jumps to making life better for everybody else. It's a process, just like anything else. As far as media goes, I don't believe in censorship, and I never have. Right?
Me neither. I don't
There-
like it. Yeah. What?
No, there's a fine line to what is acceptable and what's not. This is a conversation that is fun to have because there are things that I do not agree with existing. There are video games that I don't think should exist. There are things that are not okay, and we should be
Mm.
doing a line somewhere in the sand and saying, hey, this is not acceptable. We shouldn't do this. And then there are things that are horribly violent and horribly gory and all this stuff that have a place in media that are there because they are shocking. And I think that's okay. But there is a line.
Yes, absolutely. There is a line. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just like when you come to the game, it's a little bit old. It's quite some back because you brought out there are a lot of video games that should not exist. I think I know what video game you're talking
Yeah.
about. You talking about No Mercy? That video
Yes.
game?
Yes. Absolutely should not exist. That is
I mean, haven't played it.
horribly
Yes, I mean
haven't either.
I've heard about it when it came out, and I saw some trailers and about it, and I'm going to be honest, I was disgusted by it.
Yeah.
Because this is like, I'm sorry, but I'm sorry. Of course, it was taken down by Steam or whatever, but I'm going to say this openly. Anybody who bought this game and played it and enjoyed it to any degree is a piece of shit, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because I'm
Yeah.
going to be honest. I mean, when I read about this game, when I saw what it was, I always inform myself very specifically before I buy a game about it. I can't comprehend how any sane person would buy this game at all.
Mhm.
And I mean, there might be people that have bought it to say, like, to just find out, is it really that bad? Because there are also a lot of people that don't really inform themselves about video games.
Yeah.
And from the title alone, okay, let's check this out. But I also think on the Steam community themselves really complain about this game. This game was mass flagged for
Yeah.
the right reasons. But also,
Right.
unfortunately, there were a lot of people who liked it, that thought it was a fun game. And to
Yeah.
all those people,
Yeah.
you are all pieces of shit. That's the only thing I have to say.
Yeah. 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 There are some things that shouldn't exist. I understand liking gore and violence and all that stuff, and honestly, I don't have any problem with it. It's when it verges on sex crimes and rape
Yes.
and things like
Yes.
that where I have to draw the line because basically what you're doing at that point is creating a simulator for people who enjoy that kind of thing. And there I'm just like, nah,
Exactly. Yeah. No.
not okay.
Yeah.
Not okay. Not okay.
It's also, just like you say, there's a line when you come to these gore things or whatever. It's one thing if it's fictional. If it's basically just movies and it's basically just entertainment, I have no issue with these things, except for the same issue you have. I draw the line when you have sexual violence against women or children or generally against people. That's where I draw the
Yeah.
line. That's
Yeah.
no.
Absolutely.
No, there's no way. But when it comes to everything else, it's one thing if it's fictional. Just like I said, that's totally fine. One thing, personally, that I do not like is when it's real things. When people watch these videos or make these movies about real things. What is also a big thing where I generally do not like horror movies that are based on true stories.
Mhm.
Not necessarily that I don't enjoy these movies, but that is always a download for me. If I hear a horror movie is based on a true story, I usually don't watch it. Just
But
like
based on a true story is something that's way overused
yeah,
because
yeah, I know.
there should be something that says, okay, you can say this was based on a true story if 75% of it is true to the story. But
Yes. I mean,
Texas Chainsaw Massacre was marketed the same way,
exactly. I know.
based on a
Even
true
though,
story.
yeah, and okay, it might be a little hypocritical because our band is named after that movie. But it's not like I would say the fact of only a horror movie based on a true story is I wouldn't watch it or I wouldn't enjoy it. But it is always a point that uh I would criticize the movie for it, that I would give it, that I would downvote it. No, for example, like if even if it was a movie, even if the movie was a 10 to me, I would downvote it simply being based on a true story. Also, one of the things that I mean, looking into true crime stories and cults and all the things, there are quite interesting things that happen, and I read about them a lot.
Mhm.
But it's not really something I technically enjoy. It's just interesting stories. There's things between interesting and enjoying something. One thing I also specifically do not like is what has happened recently within the last few years. True crime stories, true crime series, and all of these movies. It is something that I don't like it, and I do not think that these things should be glorified. It's one thing making a documentary about true crime. No, that's informative, and that is stuff I like. But if you take
Yeah.
like Netflix, they've been doing it recently. I think the one was, what was the name of it? These two shows they did.
Monster Ed Gein, the story of
Yeah,
Ed Gein. You talking about Monster, the story of Ed Gein? That guy?
yeah. That
Yeah.
one specifically. And there was
And Ted Bundy. Yeah, that's pretty tasteless.
yeah.
I'll give you that.
That is
It's
in
tasteless.
my
Yeah.
opinion, that is something that should not be glorified. That is something that should not be used for entertainment. Educational, okay. Not to, like from a historical standpoint, it's interesting to read about these things. I do it myself,
Yep.
but it's not something that should be used for entertainment, in
Right.
my opinion.
Glorification of things like that is not
Yes.
okay.
Yes.
And that's the problem though, man. And I think the discussion there, you're going to find people that have difference of opinion on it. And those discussions generally turn out very interesting because you can say something has entertainment value, right? You can say, well, this thing happened, therefore it's historical.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, make a movie about it because God knows we did that with World War II. We make
More than
movies about
enough.
that shit, all those terrible things, right? And that's fine. But once you glorify it or add positivity to it and make it something that's interesting strictly because of what they did, that's not okay. I don't think that's okay. If it's a fictional horror movie where people get, tortured and murdered, okay, it's fiction. Fine. But what happened with the Ted Bundy story that they did on Netflix, I wasn't okay with that at all. I was like, "What is this? Are you fucking kidding me?" Because people were like, "Yeah, this series is so great. And oh my god, did you see what he did?" This guy is a real life serial killer who would
Yeah.
abduct people, murder them, rape the dead bodies, and then dispose of the bodies. And people were like, "Oh, this is great." I'm like, "No, this actually happened, and the people that they're talking about in the series are real people. No, that's not okay." So yeah, I
It's
agree
not.
with you. Absolutely.
I haven't seen it. I'm going to be honest. I haven't seen it.
Don't.
I read about it. I knew it came out. I knew what it was about. And no, I'm not watching this shit. No,
No.
not at all. I don't. I never cared. I'm not watching it.
Certainly there's an argument for censorship there. Like, I
Yeah.
do not believe in censorship. I don't believe that we should limit creativity, but I think that's the key word is creativity. I feel
Yes.
like if it's fiction and if it tells a story and it's dramatic and it's gory and it's violent and all that stuff, that's fine.
Yes.
It's creativity. But if you're taking an actual story and glorifying something horrible that happened, maybe not okay.
Yeah.
There was an argument for that with Schindler's List too, Mike, and that was an argument that people had in the '80s. That movie made so much
Yeah, but
fucking
Schindler's
money,
List is an
right?
entirely
So much fucking money,
that's
and it
an
was
entirely
Steven
different thing.
Spielberg.
I mean, it's Steven Spielberg, of course, but
Right,
yes and no. I can understand the argument, but Schindler's List is a historical based movie. The
right.
attempt was to show what happened back then. And Schindler, and the thing is, overall, the entire movie shows a very extreme dark time of humanity, where, of course, a lot of people got slaughtered, but it showed the one guy that was absolutely incapable of changing anything, but
Yep.
at least tried to help as much people he could in that situation. That's what makes Schindler's List an entirely different thing, but because it has the historical aspect.
Right.
Not because he was like Schindler. He was also, I think, he was one of the people that got judged for war crimes or whatever. Gonna be honest, I'm not that sure about that. I'm not really that much of a history fan. I mean, I like history, but not that extreme into details. But yes, under the circumstances and what society he lived in, he tried to help these people as much as he could.
Yeah.
Yeah, so.
Right. The reason I bring that up is because that movie specifically in America brought up the discussion on a governmental level of censorship and what's okay and what's not okay. And that's ultimately what came out of it. What you said is that, hey, yes, movie is horrific. There are terrible things in it, but there's nothing being glorified, and it tells the story of basically the positive parts of the human spirit triumphing, and therefore there's nothing to be censored there. And that was what came out of that discussion. And I think things like that are thought provoking and remind people about what happened, even if it is horrific, it's there for a positive reason. You have to look at the reason.
Yes.
If the reason is to glorify it because it's interesting and some people get off on that, then it's not okay. If it's there to tell a story and it has a positive message, even though it has all these terrible things in it, that's okay. And I feel the same way about video games. Entertainment is entertainment. Reality is reality. We should not be glorifying terrible things that happen in reality.
Absolutely. Yes. Yes. I agree
And
with
so,
that.
yeah. And so that's where I'm at. And it's the same thing with the Terrifier films, right? That's arguably the most disgusting thing that's come out of the horror genre in a really long time. And it became very popularized and very mainstream, even though the stuff that's in those movies is stuff that we've never been shown before. But it is entertainment. It's entertainment. It is purely a horror film. It's not glorifying anything. There's no reason for censorship. Now, if that movie, any of those movies had taken a different turn into glorifying that kind of thing, then I would be completely against it.
Yeah,
but
that's just things that bothers me about people, complaining about horror movies or censorship. It's like there was no discussion about Monster on Netflix being censorship at all. Nobody cared. That was the thing that specifically bothered me. I mean, governments have discussions over totally fictional stories that are totally made up. Monster on Netflix, no government cared about.
I didn't give a shit.
That is a problem, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I agree. So as far as this movie goes, I'm still gonna stick with my original. This is still in my top 5, but the movie's gonna mean different things to different people. I think purely on a movie making note, I think the movie itself, without any context, is still really good. Practical effects, amazing. Some of the best that have arguably been done. Acting was fantastic. Story was based on a true story. Everything was filmed on location where it originally happened. Overall, fucking A+. Love this movie. But then again, that's my context. Your context is the other side of the context, and I think that's also really important because the movie's gonna hit people differently because of what it is. Yeah. Do we know what we're doing next time?
Yes, Poltergeist.
Poltergeist?
Yeah. That was the next movie on the
Poltergeist?
list, yeah.
Okay. Fucking sweet. Okay, I love that movie. Awesome. Okay, that makes me happy. Poltergeist is a classic. Poltergeist is a classic. Okay. Also, we can get to it when we get to that episode, but the name of the movie is funny because Americans mispronounce this shit all the time, like I just did.
That's Poltergeist.
Poltergeist, yeah, that's a German word.
Yeah.
But Americans are like, oh yeah, Poltergeist. I love that fucking. It's just pronounced wrong every time they say the name of the movie, and I didn't know that when I was a kid either. But whatever. I'm excited. I love that movie.
Yeah.
Okay.
Me too.
hope everybody enjoyed the episode. Check us out next time for Poltergeist. And yeah, that's it. Until next time, I'm Matt.
I'm Mike.
We'll see you guys around.
See you guys. Bye.
The blackest skies, the darkest side. Simply